Fuel efficiency.
Why don't you ask China to do it?
50 miles per
China's
gallon.
a bigger polluter than we are.
Renewable portfolio standard. In other words, all
fault.
electricity in America, 30% renewable sources. Reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 80% by 2040, by 30% by 2020. A cap and trade system.
That's even a problem.
Energy efficiency too.
Isn't
You've
carbon
got to ask the
dioxide
American
considered
people
a
to
pollutant?
sacrifice a little bit.
Breathing
What
is
does that
considered a
mean?
pollutant?
That means when we use appliances, mass transit,
Yeah.
air conditioning, that we all
We are going to go
bound
back to the
together
dark ages
to
where we'll be
reduce
sowing our
this
fields
dependence on foreign
with an
oil that
ox cart.
affects our national
They are the
security.
enemies
When
of technology and
65%
future and
of
development
your
and
oil is
production.
imported.
They
When
want
the
to close
planet-
down
when the
production,
planet
close
is
down technology.
polluted by
Technology
fossil
is the
fuels
enemy
and
to them.
man-made pollution. It
iPods are
is
the enemy.
American leadership and its presidential leadership.
Correct.
And it has to be
iPods,
an energy
computers,
revolution, not these
energy.
little energy bills that the Congress
We
keeps
need
passing
oil.
that are meaningless.
Thank you, Governor. Question for Senator Dodd.
It's part of the
Question to
economy
you
of the
alone,
world.
Senator,
Until we have something
about this
better,
intersection
like nuclear power,
of environment and
France has.
sacrifice. So many people have been
Gonna be
saddened
screwed.
by the pictures these past few days from Southern California. There are reports that major cities in the
we're going
state
to
of
politicize this.
Georgia are threatening
We're going to blame that just like we
running
blamed
out of
Katrina
drinking
on the
water in
president.
a matter of
Because a
days.
hurricane
Are
can
you
hit, it could
truly
be the president's
prepared to
fault.
lead on a national scale the kind of sacrifice
fire
that
can
would
burn is
require
the
where it
president's fault.
intersects
I
with the
stubbed my toe
environment?
this morning.
Well,
I
I
blame the
think
president.
you've got to, I find it somewhat startling here that Ronald Reagan's former Secretary of State and George Bush's first chief economic advisor are frankly more courageous and bold on energy policy than my fellow competitors here for this job, the presidency. I've called for a corporate carbon tax. All of us share the same goals here of achieving energy independence,
Taxes,
reducing our dependency on fossil
that's
fuels
new,
and the carbon they
innovative.
emit. But you're not going to achieve
Blah,
that
blah,
with
blah,
the
taxes.
price, quite frankly.
Blah, blah, blah,
There's a
tax,
direct
tax,
correlation
blah, 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 free
between
social
continuing
health
a
care,
policy
which means more taxes.
that produces
Blah,
the
blah, blah,
CO2
blah.
emissions and the health hazards
Social
of our
Security
country
taxes.
and the climate change
Blah, blah, blah,
problem.
one rack
You've got to
taxes.
deal with price because
Blah, blah,
frankly
blah, taxes,
consumers are not
taxes,
going to be in a
taxes,
position
taxes,
where they can afford
taxes.
the more expensive fuels or
taxes make
alternative
people
fuels and
vote.
technologies.
By taking more of
So
their
the
money,
corporate
it
carbon
helps.
tax, taxing carbon,
Tax,
is a
tax.
critical element if you're going to achieve this kind of energy change we need in our country. That directly bears on the kinds of problems we're seeing. There's no doubt in my mind that there's a correlation between what you've just described, Brian, and energy policy here. Not
Talk
to
to
mention
the
the
American
national
people,
security
not to Brian.
and
Look into
economic
the camera
security
and
risks
like the great
as a
Ronald
result of our
Reagan
continuing
saying,
dependence on fossil fuels,
fellow
particularly
Americans.
oil out of the Middle East. So those are things that I advocate, that no one else does on this stage here this evening. Al Gore has called it the most bold and honest plans. It's been called the blue
Al Gore.
ribbon, or the gold standard rather, by any of the energy policies that have been suggested by
Al Gore
presidential
won the
candidates.
Nobel Peace
This
Prize,
is a
even
major
though
issue that
the
requires
international community
hardship.
agreed that there was
A
something
corporate
like
carbon
over
tax
10
is not without a cost.
misconceptions
I understand
and falsehoods in
that.
his
But the
film.
status quo of continuing
Al
borrowing
Gore, who
$1
uses
billion
private
every
jets
day
but tells
to
everybody
buy
else that we
foreign
need
oil,
to tax
continuing the
our
risk to our
consumption.
country, I think is
You are
unacceptable. That's why I'm
anti-consumptionist,
advocating.
and you
Senator
are
Edwards,
anti-productivity,
should
and you
there
are
be a
anti-technology.
bottomless well of federal
Going to send us
dollars
back into
for
the dark
people
ages.
who knowingly
Ooh, look at
live
that
in
ice
areas of
cream.
this country that are disaster
Light bulb
prone
got to his eye.
to rebuild their homes if lost in a disaster?
Well, I think that when families are devastated, and we've lived with this in North Carolina because we've been regularly hit by hurricanes, and I've spent an awful lot of time in New Orleans. When families are hit by natural disasters,
I spent a lot of time
think
in
it
New
is for
Orleans,
the
even though
national
I
community
had
to
investments
be there for them.
in,
I think that's our joint responsibility as a national community to be there for them. And my view about what's happened, particularly in New Orleans, is it's absolutely heartbreaking to see what's happened there. Because this is a perfect example of a
Investments in
government
companies
that's a
that were throwing
mess,
people out of their
and the
homes.
American
That's
people
okay.
who are absolutely extraordinary. I mean, you look at how America has responded to this tragedy. They have been volunteering, contributing. I took 700 college
That's right,
students
the American
down to
people
New
did
Orleans
that.
who gave up
They
their
didn't need
spring
the help
break
of government.
to go down there and work to help rehabilitate
people
houses.
did it on their
I'm
own.
so inspired and proud of those young
Need more
kids.
government.
But the government has been a complete disaster. And contracts have been let to these multinational corporations instead of allowing the people of New Orleans to rebuild their own city. My view is we didn't need a surge in Baghdad. We need a surge in New Orleans.
That's
we need
right,
to be there
because
for
New
our
Orleans is
people
gonna
who
continue
are
to
struggling.
exist.
And I do
If
think
Iraq
we can be
fails
smart
and Al-Qaeda wins.
about planning. I think actually in the case of New Orleans, there was an extraordinary opportunity to rebuild a city that was more economically integrated, more racially integrated. Those pictures that we saw coming out of the Ninth Ward of New Orleans, I think broke a lot of people's hearts. And I think actually was a wake-up call to a lot of Americans who didn't realize that kind of problem existed.
Does smarter mean any limits? Let's just take 20 seconds more here. From Malibu to the Outer Banks down to Florida, should there be unlimited federal
Of course, we have to be smart. We have to be environmentally sensitive. There's actually, on the coast of North Carolina, we've done a great deal to do that, to preserve wetlands, for example, which are a crucial barrier to help protect our coast. But yes, smart, but when a natural disaster comes, our country needs to be there for our people.
To Tim Russert.
I'd like to talk about taxes. Senator Clinton, I'd like to start with you because the chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, Charlie Rangel, is a strong supporter of your campaign. He wants to repeal the alternative minimum tax, but he also wants to have a 4% surtax on a single $150,000 income or $200,000 married couple. You went to Harlem with your husband, with Charlie Rangel, and the former president said, quote, "Charlie Rangel wants me to pay more taxes so you can pay less, and I think that's a good idea." Is that also your view?
Well, I am a great admirer of Chairman Rangel, and what he's trying to do is deal with a very serious problem. You know, the alternative minimum tax was never intended to hit people who are in middle income, upper middle income. It was meant for people who are rich and evading taxes. Now, I don't know all the details of what Charlie is recommending, but I certainly agree with the goal. We've got to do something with the alternative minimum tax. There are a lot of ways of getting there. I want it to be fair and progressive. It starts in the House. It starts in the Ways and Means Committee, which he chairs. But I think my husband was expressing an opinion that a lot of people who have been very fortunate and blessed over the last 6.5 years feel. You know, we've not been asked to sacrifice anything. You know, young men and women wearing the uniform of our country are dying and being maimed.
You are asked to do something. You are asked to support them with surges, with more men on the ground. More men on the ground obviously will work than less men on the ground. How complicated
to the wealthiest of Americans. Now, I never thought Bill and I would be in that category, to be honest with you. So it's kind of a new experience, but it's not one that makes us very comfortable, because we should be investing in new energy. We should be investing in college.
Why? You're an environmentalist. You don't believe in drilling an animal.
The kind of health care plan that I've outlined,
you don't believe in cutting trees down.
That's what we intend to do. But we're going to have to deal with the AMT, something that the Republicans have refused to do because, very frankly, it hits people who are below their concern. They're concerned about the real top wage
earners. The evil Republicans, all they care about is rich people. The evil Republicans love killing people. If you buy this,
two-income families that are doing well. So we're going to have to do something about it. I think Charlie's being very courageous and moving forward. I don't agree with all the details, but he's on the right track to say we've got to do something about the AMT.
For oil, Republicans hate poor people. Republicans hate women. Republicans are racist.
No, I didn't say that, Jim. I said that I'm in favor of doing something about the AMT. How we do it and how we put the package together, everybody knows, is extremely complicated. It's not going to happen while George Bush is president. Everybody knows that.
Who should we be caring about?
A fair and progressive
should we be caring about people who don't work, who don't make money, who don't put anything into the economy?
When I'm president.
Or should we be caring
and
about
there are a lot
productive,
of moving pieces here.
Who give into the economy by having businesses, by making money? We want to help them with less government restrictions so they can make more money, so they can hire more people.
At the 2009 level of $7 million for a couple, there's a lot of moving parts.
Of course, Robin Hood stole from the rich to get to the poor.
To a specific approach, but I applaud Chairman Rangel for beginning the conversation.
But you will not campaign on the Rangel plan.
No, that's Charlie Rangel's plan, and as I say, I support and admire his willingness to take this on.
Senator Obama, will you campaign on the Rangel plan?
No, because I don't know all the details of it, and I may not agree with some aspects of it. But let's broaden the conversation here. We're all traveling all across the country, Iowa, New Hampshire. Everywhere you go, you'll meet a single mother who is raising her kids, working at the same time, trying to go to college, and every one of her costs, from health care to college tuition.
Do you think that eventually in the long run, her prices will go up or down if you keep taxing the American people? If you keep having more government huge bureaucracies that demand more taxes from everyone?
Page tax code that is rife.
The Republicans have given back tax money. They promised to do it, and they've done it.
That supposedly houses 12,000 U.S.
We believe in tax cuts,
which means it's either the largest building in the world or the biggest tax ripoff in the world, and I think we know which one it is. So there has to be a restoration of balance.
Government spends too much money
in our tax code.
We need cuts in spending,
that single mom,
not more spending, except for when it comes to war. We need to defend ourselves.
So I put forward a very specific plan. I've said we are going to offset some of the payroll taxes that people are experiencing, so that families who are making less than $50,000 a year get
Why not
larger
51,000?
prices. I want to make sure that seniors
Who put you the
who are
arbiter
making less than
of
$50,000,
50,000, 51,000? Why not 51?
the taxes on
Why
their
not
Social
90?
Security.
Why not
Those
300,000?
kinds of